Today, we proudly present a non-scary, practical guide to generative AI with Sree Sreenivasan. Sree is co-founder of Digimentors, a social, digital, and virtual events consultancy. He has served as Chief Digital Officer of New York City, the Metropolitan Museum of Art, and Columbia University. He was named to Fast Company's list of the 100 most creative people in business and Poynter Institute's 35 most influential in social media. Sree was a full-time professor at Columbia Journalism School for more than 20 years, running the digital media department, which is where we met, and serving as Dean of Student Affairs. He maintains his roots in journalism. He's president of the South Asian Journalists Association and writes a popular Substack newsletter. He is here this afternoon fresh from his weekly Sunday morning New York Times read-along. I urge you to Google that to find out more. Without further ado, I present not a chatbot, but live and in person, Sree Sreenivasan.
Thank you. Thank you so much, and hello everyone. I had the honor of being here 9 years ago to talk about social media and other now distant ancient technologies. And I'm so thrilled to be here. Look at this full house on a Sunday. We are going to talk about AI and what's happening there. This is obviously a very timely topic. And we want this to be an opportunity to ask lots of questions. We will have a Q&A period at the end, but I'll also try to break a couple of times to take a couple of quick questions. And a big welcome to everyone watching on Zoom. We look forward to your questions and comments in the chat. I also always recommend introduce yourself in the chat so at least you all can kind of chat with each other as well. I know that in a room like this, there'll be people of different levels of tech comfort, and that's perfectly okay. People who are using ChatGPT and these tools every day, and there are others who are thinking about using them, and then others who are using them without knowing that they're using them. So that's what happens. And there's a lot of ground to cover, so please bear with me, and we will definitely get to as many questions as we can. I do have a train to catch back into the city, but Pam has made sure that we have plenty of time. And also want to thank Jeff and everyone here at the Friends of the Library. Not only do they help with all the fundraising and everything that they do, they even show up early. Board members show up early to something like this, which is very rare in organizations. So salute to the Friends of the Library. My contact information and things are on here so you can keep in touch. Normally when I do presentations on other subjects, I make kind of bespoke slides for particular organizations, but what I've been doing with this AI stuff is I've made one set of slides that I keep updating. So if you note down where this is, either through the QR code or through that link at the bottom on the right, you will then be able to access this, and there'll be always new stuff there. And you can, of course, take photographs of the slides. And the other thing I'll say is if anyone here wishes, you had a friend who was watching on Zoom, they can still go to the calendar of events right now. If you text them and say, go to the calendar, they can register, and they'll get a link to the Zoom so they can watch. Even now, they can join us if you'd like them to do that. So that's also an opportunity to bring people closer to everything that's happening here at the library. As I think about what's happening in the world of tech and with AI, I love this quote from a game designer. And Joanna says that the problem with AI is that we're going in the wrong direction. And I want AI to do my laundry and dishes so that I can do my art and writing instead of the other way around. And it's something that we were promised, right? That the robots would help us. If you remember the Jetsons and flying cars, all of that would happen. And the Roomba has been around for about 20 years. How many of you have a Roomba at home? Several of you. But you know that the technology hasn't changed that much in the last 20 years. It's still, from where it was to where it is today, it's not that much different. It's smarter, but not that much smarter. So this is something that I've kept in my mind as I look at this. And there's so much happening in AI, and it's changing so quickly. Just a few weeks ago, you may have seen that the way we understood what's happening with AI took a turn. Until that day, we understood that Silicon Valley was leading the AI charge, doing good and bad things, but firmly in charge and leading in a way that no one else in the world was able to even keep up. And then that all changed with a Chinese tool that came out. Did anyone catch this news? It's called DeepSeek, right? Some of you have heard that term. I should say, I will be tossing out names, tools, ideas, topics at you. So if you have a pen and paper or your phone, or if you happen to have a laptop, or whatever makes you comfortable, if you're taking notes, just writing down some of these so you can look at them later will be helpful. I often recommend having 2 columns. Try now, try later. And then you can just put them down, and then you can go back and take a look. You can also have a 3rd column that says, I can't believe Pam brought this guy from Manhattan. What a waste of time. That's okay. I believe taking notes is so important. Doesn't matter what notes you take. Annotating content is one of the great skills of the 21st century. It really is something that we have to, there's this fire hose of information that's coming at us. How do we take the good stuff and understand it, share it with our friends and family and colleagues, something that you can practice right here today. So DeepSeek came along, and it freaked out the AI world, because suddenly a Chinese company put itself on the map for much lower price point for the research that had been done and the speed at which it had been. And so something like $5 million instead of $500 million, something like 6 months instead of 3 years of research, right? All this stuff was kind of surprising. We're also seeing, because of this result of what's happened in China now, it's because of the very high quality of PhDs and research that's happening there, patents that are happening there. One of my friends who runs the AI department at a major university posted on social media that he had offered 2 full-ride PhD admissions to 2 students from China, and they both said no thanks and are staying in China. That's something that was unheard of even 5 years ago. And so as we hear about China in the context of tariffs and geopolitics, this has been building over time. And this also affects New York State, home of many universities, and Long Island, home of universities. I was a visiting professor at Stony Brook, and I saw the impact of students from China in the PhD and other programs. So this is a serious issue, and we're going to see that the way we were bringing in so many international students, that's going to be affected beyond just the geopolitics and visas and things like that. So you're going to see that. So this was what happened in just February. Now it's March, so just a month ago. It might seem like a year, right? And so one thing I tell folks, if you are told about a new tool that you haven't tried, even if it's OpenAI, you haven't tried it, ChatGPT, you haven't tried it, and you're not sure what to do, just look at the way you learn to appreciate Google. Some of us are old enough to remember a time before Google, and there were tools that we used to use: Yahoo, Alta Vista, Ask Jeeves. Some of you are nodding because you remember this. There was a very popular tool called Dogpile, where they would just search all the other search engines and they would give you those results. And I used to do workshops like this at libraries, including the New York Public Library, on why you should use this new thing called Google. And people say, no thanks, I love Alta Vista, right? So the way you learn if a search engine is good is to test it against something you already know. You're all experts on various topics, either through work or life or just your research and reading. Go in there and put in a topic you're really comfortable with and see what results come out. That's sort of how a lot of us got used to using Google, and you've seen the domination that Google had. And another thing you can do is just put in your own name and see what comes out and understand what's there. So I did that with DeepSeek, and this is what it says. I said, tell me everything I need to know about Sree, and it said, a prominent journalist educator. That was interesting. It said I was born in May 9th, 1966. I was actually born in 1970, not in India, in Tokyo, Japan. Okay, and it got my degrees correct, but I didn't notice there was past tense being used here. So I was like, okay, I didn't notice that. So I just went on to the next page where I had all my contributions. That was all fine. And then I noticed that the image, by the way, on the right, I created, but the rest in the middle is me. I died September 9, 2020, after a long battle with cancer. It was a brave battle. And I was widely mourned by the journalism and digital media communities. Yeah, we miss you. Thank you. Notice my family didn't care. They were not mourning me at all. They didn't worry about this. But so we laugh at these things. What are mistakes on AI and by AI called? There's a specific term. Hallucinations. You may have heard that term. So that means that's a word that I don't like. I'm actually campaigning against that term because it's sort of like a cop-out. You know, it's like the soft landing word. It's like, oh, just a mistake, you know, just a small thing. It's like a mirage. So I don't like it. So these are actually errors, mistakes, big effing deals, but we call them hallucinations. So I don't like those. And the reason you see things like this, even with someone like me who's been on the internet for 30 years, I've been posting, and I have a Wikipedia page with the information is mostly correct. The fact that it's doing this tells you you can't trust it. Even things that have established facts, that they can put out things like this is disturbing. The image on the right, I just built that on WhatsApp has a AI tool built in now on your phone. If you use WhatsApp, you'll see that. WhatsApp is the kind of tool that lots of people use and lots of people don't use because they've not been exposed to it. But let's see any WhatsApp users here. Look around you. So it's about half the room, maybe a little more than half, but the other half don't use it, whereas the ones who know about it use it every day. And that tells you, especially if you have family abroad or you're from overseas or you travel a lot, then you need WhatsApp. But other Americans perfectly happy not to use it or not, there's no need to use it. So this tells you how careful you have to be. So I promise that this is a non-scary talk, but there will be scary things in it. And how we deal with it is one of the things we can talk about in detail when we get to the Q&A, and I'd love to hear your input as well on this idea. So the company I work with, that I run, we do a lot of these talks, and now we've been doing, in addition to these workshops, we've been doing AI policy, AI strategy, AI scenario planning for companies. What does AI mean for the work we're doing? That's something that we are spending a lot of time on to help people kind of figure all this out. And there is so much to figure out in this. I have brought some business cards, but I also like to show people kind of new tools. And there's a tool called Blink, which is a kind of post-business card. Has anyone used this? There are many tools like this there's one called PWPL, and several others where it's kind of a digital business card where, again, you can use a QR code, connect with somebody, connects you back. There are many tools like this. And I like showing that to people just to get a sense of how the world has changed since the pandemic. And it's hard to believe, that this is the 5-year anniversary. If you will think back for a second, what are the various things that we went through, right? Learning Zoom. Though even 5 years later, people are still muted when they shouldn't be muted. Have you noticed that on Zoom calls? So many things changed in our lives. Working remotely for those who could, while lots of other people had to be in person. We know everything that happened. And then you can also think back to when you knew the pandemic was real in your mind. And many people have different things. For some people, it's the day the NBA shut down. For other people, it was a moment like me when Tom Hanks got sick in Australia. Do you remember that moment where you got that? And I said, wow, this is real. And so there are different things that bring us kind of awareness of what's happening. And now we know a lot of the political things that happen after, the distrust, disinformation, all of that came from the experience of the pandemic itself and how good and bad information circulated. And I just shudder to think what would have happened if AI had been around in that way, what we call generative AI now. If it had been around, what it would have meant. In the work that I do, I have kind of two big ideas I think about. And first is this, that the scarcest resource of the 21st century is human attention. How do we get it, keep it, grow it? It's the most important thing we can do. I did a TEDx Broadway talk on this topic because even places like Broadway or where I worked at the Metropolitan Museum of Art, getting attention is so difficult. When I'd meet people, I'd ask them about going to museums, and we would always say at the Met that our competition isn't the Guggenheim or the Louvre. It is life in 2025, right? It's Candy Crush. It's whatever people are doing. That's like Netflix is our competition. So I always encourage people, even when I was at the Met, to go to any museum is a good thing when you can do that. And I encourage you, of course, still to do that. And of course, you're all patrons of this library, which is so special, and that we can do events like this. The other idea that I have is that we all have two footprints. We have a physical footprint and a digital footprint. Our physical footprint is everyone who knows and loves us and will answer your calls and be in touch. Pam and I met 30 years ago, and she calls, I'm here, right? Like that's the physical footprint. The digital footprint is everything else. And to be successful today, you have to build your digital footprint. Otherwise, you're leaving opportunities, resources, impact on the table. And that's one of the things that I think about a lot in my work, and how nonprofits, we work with a lot of nonprofits, how to increase that footprint. And AI has a big role to play in that. This is how she knew me 30 years ago. I had hair, and computers looked like that. Is there anyone here young enough that they never worked with a computer like that? Maybe, no, nobody in this room. But I have been in rooms where they have not seen I've only seen one on TV or anything else. And if you squint your eyes, you can see there's a woman with a laptop in that shot. And every time she opened the laptop, we'd all go, ooh, because it's so exciting. She had a laptop. But there weren't enough plug points in the Columbia newsroom there. So the computer would die in about 30 minutes. And so that's where we were, and look where we've come with technology. When I was at the Met, I would always say that people would ask me about QR codes and how come we don't have QR codes next to every painting. And I said, Americans don't use QR codes. And I learned something, obviously, with the pandemic that changed, right? You remember with the restaurant menus, everybody started using QR codes. And one of the mistakes that was made at that time was that Apple had created a QR code reader in the iPhone, but did a terrible job of telling people that it had this cool thing built in. So one of the most useful tools was not announced properly. And one way to think about this is that the greatest marketing machine of all time did a terrible job marketing this great feature that it had. And now you can see so many different things have QR codes. I'll just very quickly go up on the left is LinkedIn, Instagram, WhatsApp, Snapchat, Messenger, Venmo, and PayPal if you want to send me some money. There's Twitter, and there's TikTok. And then extreme left on the bottom, anyone know what that is? It's not Toast. It could be Toast, but it's not Toast. It is a tool called WeChat. Has anyone heard of this? This is the biggest platform in China. And this is what the Chinese use. It's not their Twitter or their Facebook. It's their Twitter and their Facebook and their Ticketmaster and all kinds of things. And that's what Elon Musk is trying to do in building out X. He wants it to be the everything app that WeChat already is to China. He's adding, as you might know, dating and finance into X. What could possibly go wrong? Everything, right? That's what we're going to see. There's my LinkedIn. By the way, just a word about LinkedIn. As social media has gone through all this turmoil, LinkedIn has become more important than ever and still more confusing than it's ever been. There's so much still to be done to improve LinkedIn, but I recommend people use it and get smarter about using it as well. So part of what I want to share with you today is how to think about technology rather than just all the practical stuff, which we will do, but how to think about it. And in March 1989, a young man sent a note to his boss about a new project idea, and the boss wrote back, vague but exciting. That's not very encouraging, but anyway, what he was proposing was the World Wide Web. And you've probably heard the name Tim Berners-Lee is like the father of the World Wide Web. So everything on this slide and everything we use today came from that, right, from that effort. And part of my message is that technology is hard. Keeping up is hard. Here is just a single day of Apple headlines inside a Bloomberg terminal. Just Apple. How do you keep up? It's almost impossible to keep up. And you've seen how the valuations of these platforms have gone up incredibly in just 10 years, right? It's so hard to keep up with this stuff. Now, we're going to take a second, and I'd like you to look at this list. These are all companies that you know. These are all household names. I'm going to give you two of them. One is Auction Web, you can guess, became eBay. Good. And the other, Sound of Music, you probably wouldn't guess it, but became Best Buy. Anyone know any of the others? All right. So I'm going to show you the answer, and you will be amused about some of them. So Backrub became Google, Cadabra became Amazon, Peekaboo Snapchat, Bourbon became Instagram. Now, Tinder I can understand. Matchbox sounds like makes sense with matches. And then Kibble became Netflix. And imagine that these are things we use every day, but the first time someone mentioned it to you, you would have no idea what it is. And that's what's going to happen in our AI tools as I show them to you. Things that you've never heard of suddenly become, some of them become household names, like DeepSeek, even though it barely existed and we didn't even know about it till a month ago. So that's how quickly these things change, and keeping track of them is hard. And this is at a time when you can see there's so much noise about AI. Look at this kind of productivity gain and a boost to the global economy, 7 trillion, 15 trillion. These are impossible numbers to kind of think about, even if they're exaggerated, right? Even if they're, cut them in half, they're still so big. Here is a look at the chances of jobs being lost to AI. In the US, 25%, Japan a little more, all the way down to India at 12%. Again, cut these numbers in half, and there's still tens of millions of jobs in each of these countries, right? Maybe more. And I don't think we as a society, as government officials, as companies, as consumers, we talk about this enough. There's a lot of joking around about jobs and all that, but just look at this. This really captures the dangers of where we are with this, and why we need to raise these issues with our legislators and say, what are you doing about this? And we think often that these are going to be, we know what kind of jobs are going to be automated. You know, factory jobs are going to be automated, certain kinds of jobs. But we're also finding things that we didn't expect to become automated. Do you remember about 5-7 years ago, everyone was told, get your children or yourself to learn coding. Do you remember that? Really important. We must all code, code, code. Well, what's one of the first things generative AI does really well? Coding, right? And there's an article in today's New York Times about how AI is, this is the way AI, the computers became better than human beings at chess about 15 years ago. They're now about to become better than humans at all kinds of coding starting this year, right? So that doesn't mean we don't need coders, but it just means we'll have fewer of them. There's a Marvel movie called Logan about Wolverine, and in that, it's set in the year 2029, and a surprising industry has been fully automated. Does anyone even remember what that was? It was a truck driving industry. All the trucks in that movie are without, they're kind of odd to see because there's no driver's cab, there's no cab in the front. It's only just the containers are just driving back and forth. And this January, I was in San Francisco, and I took my first driverless taxi ride. And I encourage any of you in Austin, San Francisco, Phoenix, if you get there, and you have the courage to sign up for one of these things. And I thought I'd be really cool about it, Mr. Tech, I'll know what to do. So I sat in there. I had trouble getting in, all of that. By the way, I did a Facebook Live of this thing, an Instagram Live that you can find on my Instagram. But it was all fine, and there's no driver, obviously, but there is a steering wheel. And it's going fine. When it's going straight, it was perfectly okay. But when that thing started turning, I was worried. I was like, I'm not going to make it out of this thing. And it was in the slow streets of San Francisco. Imagine highways, imagine all of that. And this is version 1 of these tools, right? And they're coming all over the country. They're going to be around, and they're going to be in our lives. And anything that can be mapped out and predicted, these tools can do. And it's whether it's filling in, you've seen on Google when you start typing, the autocomplete comes up, right? Like that kind of autocomplete is what they're doing at a massive scale when they're doing any of these kinds of things. So it's coming. We just don't, we don't know until you're actually in it what all this means. So I'm going to play a little video for you from, this is now 2 years ago.
In May of 2023, someone posted this AI-generated image of what appeared to be a terrorist bombing at the Pentagon.
Today we may have witnessed one of the first drops in the feared flood of AI-created disinformation.
It was shared on Twitter via what seemed to be a verified account from Bloomberg News.
It only took seconds to spread fast. The Dow now down about 200 points.
2 minutes later, the stock market dropped $500 billion from a single fake image. Anybody could have made that image, whether it was intentionally manipulating the market or unintentionally. In some ways, it doesn't really matter.
It doesn't matter if it was intentional or not. And that's just an example of what can happen. One image, $500 billion in a loss of value, right? Like in the stock market. So this is where we have to speak up. We have to participate, and we have to be involved in the world that's around us. And that's really important for us to be able to do what we're doing. So we'll talk about what generative AI is, why it's useful, why it's scary, the ethical and legal questions. And I'm not giving you any homework, but if you wanted some homework, there's the old professor in me, this is what I would encourage you to do. Take a picture of this and see if you can answer this after today. 3 ways you can use AI in your work or play, and 3 things to be careful about, and 3 tools you want everyone to know about. And why this is important is that the way the internet became really popular was not when it was just something that was available, but when people could use it in their daily lives, either in their work or in their play, they could find a use for it. That's when they got used to it, right? It may not have been email at work that mattered, but email to your parents or your grandkids or something like that triggered something in the 90s for millions of people, and they started using it. So it's only when you're using it every day do these tools really help and make a big difference. This is one of my favorite memes where Bart's complaining that it's the hottest summer of his life, and his father tells him, you mean it's the coldest summer of the rest of your life. And partly you have to laugh, otherwise you'll be crying all the time. Pam was very kind to mention the New York Times read-along. This is something where we read the print Sunday New York Times every Sunday out loud on social media. So if you follow me on any of the channels, you can watch it. And instead of comedians in cars getting coffee, it's like nerds talking about the news. And our guest today was Liza Donnelly, who's a New Yorker cartoonist. And we were saying that there's so much trouble in the world. If you don't laugh, you will just cry all day. And so this is reminds me of that. So of course I turned it into a ChatGPT joke where it says it's really scary, and his father says it's the least scary, least available, least ubiquitous, least powerful it will ever be. So strap in is what he's saying, and get ready. So I'm going to show you a lot of different tools. Here's one called Mischief, and what it does is you submit a single photograph and it turns you into somebody from different movies. So this is the first James Bond, and Sean Connery has never looked so bad. And that's, here I am as Han Solo, and here I am as Daniel Craig. This is where he says, ladies and gentlemen, the weekend, some of you remember this, it's become a popular meme, it was in fact the last regular SNL before the pandemic, and it was this coming weekend that this happened. And so, of course, if I had all of this, I also need to be in Barbie, as you can see here. So anytime you see a tool like this, you should ask yourself questions. First of all, these kinds of things have been around for a long time, these face swap apps. So what is different about this? One of the things that's different is that you submit one photograph and it adjusts to different settings. You can see how it's able to do that from the same single image. It's able to do this. Second thing you should ask is, what are the privacy concerns here, right? Like, is this being uploaded onto a server or is it on your laptop? And that's really important because people have been uploading all kinds of things into ChatGPT and these tools because they don't realize that whatever it's learning from your input, right? So anything you put on there. So we work with a refugee organization, and one of the things that the workers there were doing was just inputting names of the refugees to get information, all kinds of things. And so we had to stop them and build a kind of what we call a sandbox where they're able to do things but not have it go out back into the database. And just remember, every time you're posting things, that is something that can definitely happen with this. And these mistakes and things are not just DeepSeek. I wanted to show you that OpenAI did the same thing. I don't know who looks worse, me or Elvis Presley in this case. And it got him correct, king of rock and roll. But it said I was the chief speechwriter of Bill Clinton and the executive editor of the New York Times. Anybody would know that's not possible that the same person would do both. But my late mother would have been thrilled to know that this happened to me. And here's a joke about the unemployment office being laid off. And it's not a joke, right? And so we, again, with everything that's happening in Washington right now, it's very easy to get caught up in that. But this idea that without any input or any plans in Washington, it's going to be very difficult to deal with this. And we have you ever seen people like Tim Cook or Mark Zuckerberg go in front of Congress? And when they testify, they run circles around the senators and the congressmen. Have you noticed that? And in one case, famously, a senator started asking Tim Cook basically customer support questions, tech support questions about the iPhone, about how does it work and things like that. So it's a matter of the staff as well as the senators not being ready, not thinking about these long-term issues that affect everybody when it comes to technology. That's just not the training isn't there, the understanding isn't there, and that's certainly a problem. This is one of the best ways to think about AI, and it comes from Daniel Pink, who's a great thinker and writer about technology. And he says, AI won't replace humans, but humans using AI will replace humans not using AI. And I think it's a very good way to think about this. If any of you, I know Pam was in the journalism business, there were people who thought computers and publishing were kind of passing fad, or I don't need to know how to use that. And of course, then everybody needed to use that. So whether you're going to be able to use it or not will make a difference in the jobs that you get, your children, grandchildren, nieces, nephews, neighbors, etc. And so demystifying this is part of why we're all here and why we need to talk about this. I'm going to pause here and see if anyone has a quick question. I know Jeff has a microphone. If you have a quick question about something we've talked about, we'll have longer, bigger Q&A later, but we have a question there. As we'll take these two questions here, Jeff. One here and one here.
Just need the,
yep,
there we
there you go. And then we'll come back later for more Q&A. Yeah.
So, given Elon Musk's desire to shrink the federal workforce, and your chart that says 25% of the jobs will go away, do you think that's part of his MO, thinking the more we shrink it, the more we'll have to rely on technology and that'll work?
No, it's very hard to predict what a madman is doing and trying to give like reasoning for it and trying to explain, especially Elon Musk. I've written like 9 essays about him. I have Elon Musk derangement syndrome, which is a problem. But I would say that just the way that's been done, has not been thought through. It's just, I think we could say, without being political, that everyone would agree that it's important to avoid waste, remove wastage, make government more efficient, always. Many of us grew up in the era, remember in the 70s and 80s, the $200 stapler, do you remember that? The hammer that the Defense Department, $800, the toilet seat that was $500. Some of you remember these things, right? So we know that. But the way they've gone about this with jobs and the humanity is missing. And that's one of the much larger things for all of us to think about. Where's the humanity? Forget Washington, but where's the humanity in how technology is hitting all of us? And what can we do? Elon is someone who has said that the biggest problem in Western civilization is empathy. And those of us who look at capitalism and everything else, I don't think empathy is the first word that comes up in what we do. So it's just a very interesting and important moment in our lives, and we need to keep asking the questions. Let's go to another question here, please. Thank you.
First, a little bit of a comment on the last question. What I've read around is that Elmo and the Dogettes are going to be feeding all the data they're harvesting into some kind of monster AI machine, and that's the real concern.
Yeah.
But beyond that, back to DeepSeek. I've read after it became the thing that it was largely derivative, and that the savings in terms of computing power and time were themselves largely derivative.
Yeah, so that's a great point. Yeah. So let me talk about that, and then we'll take questions again after a few more slides. One of the ironies of the last month has been watching OpenAI, which is ChatGPT, complaining that DeepSeek basically cheated and used its models to train DeepSeek's models, which is hilarious because everyone has accused ChatGPT of stealing all this content. So Sam Altman, there's a lawsuit right now. The New York Times is suing OpenAI for stealing content. The comedian Sarah Silverman was the first to say that these tools are kind of stealing our content. It's an unusual mix of people. Sarah Silverman, John Grisham, and George R.R. Martin, who wrote Game of Thrones, all in kind of the same bucket. You don't expect that, but that's where we are. So you're absolutely right that they've been accused of that, and it's in the middle of this. But the people who are accusing them of that are the ones who themselves are accused of having stolen all this stuff. Yeah, it's absolutely. So one of the points we want to make is that AI isn't new. It's been around for a long time. Steven Spielberg did a movie called AI, Artificial Intelligence, in 2001. That was a quarter century ago. Here I am in 2012. I wrote to my friend Zeba, got corrected to Zebra, poor thing. If you use Grammarly, right? How many of you use Grammarly? A few of you. Okay, I'm surprised more people don't. It's free, and it corrects like this. So in the free version, you can get about 60 to 80% of what you need. I don't pay for it. I find that what it does is good enough for me, but other people pay, $15, $20 a month to use it. So Grammarly is something you've seen. And with AI, sometimes you're soaking in it. Those of you old enough can remember this Palmolive ad where they're in a dishwashing soap ad in a hair salon, a nail salon, and she says, "Where's the Palmolive?" and says, "You're soaking in it." And then sometimes it's in you. And this is about me going to my colonoscopy appointment and my doctor saying that he's so excited about what's happening with colonoscopies and AI that he hasn't been so renewed and energized about his work in 20 years. And so this is a little too complicated. That's not my colon, thank God. But all you have to do is see the part in yellow where it says each increase in this particular detection rate decreases patient risk by 3%. And then if you look over on the left, look at those percentages, 35, 40, 50, 53. So multiply that by 3, and you get a sense of what's happening. And so what he does is he uses the same It's basically the same basic technology, but the camera is interpreting what he's looking at, and he says that it's doing a much better job than he's doing because he's calculating, imagining, thinking, predicting, but the computer can do that much better, faster, and more accurately, and look ahead another 6 to 12 months. So that's a very special thing. Some of you may have heard this if you've been to, so this ends the PSA portion of our program. Please, if you're asked to get a colonoscopy, please check it out. And we're seeing this in all kinds of medicine where it's just disrupting the world exponentially, including in the world of medicine of all kinds. But something changed in 2022 when ChatGPT came around, right? OpenAI and ChatGPT. Look at the fuss that came out as a result. On the left, you can see they look like a boy band. They got a 4-week-old AI startup got 100 million euros because they were AI. And you know, many companies that do really good work, make a profit year after year, that would never get funded. The joke was that if they don't succeed, then they could go back to being a boy band if they needed to. You've seen this lawyer who made up 6 fake cases with ChatGPT. Luckily, the judge caught it. Or this German tabloid that fired 200 people and said, AI will take care of it. We don't have to worry about it. And that's kind of where we are right now. We saw Amnesty International was criticized for using AI-generated images. You can tell this is AI-generated even when they had actual pictures of the protest. That was what got people extra mad about this. The point here is that the technology can do things, but it's humans who choose to deploy it, right? That final selection is done by editors and done by human beings. There was a professor who tried to fail half his class because he thought that they were using ChatGPT. And if any of you work at universities, you know nothing happens in the summer, but this happened in May, and by August, all these universities had created new courses, mandatory courses for students and professors to understand AI. So for 2 years, this has been going around. And a good way to understand all of this is to look at this slide and maybe take a photo of it so you can get easy access to it. And Mustafa is the CEO of Microsoft AI and formerly ran Google AI. And he talks about 3 waves of AI. One is classification, where the computer is learning. You teach it, that's a tree, that's a human being, that's a horse, it has 4 legs. That's a table, it has 4 legs, but it's not a horse, right? That's a classification. We're in now what's called generative AI, where you type in something, and something that never existed comes alive, right? Comes either in words or video or text, pictures, etc. And where we're going is the interactive mode of AI, where AI can do their work autonomously. So you may have noticed in Zoom calls now, there's a feature of the AI summary. Have you seen that? Or the AI companion. You can go in and you can ask a question. You come in late to a meeting and you can say, catch me up. And it'll tell you what happened. You can say, what's the to-do list from this? And it'll say, Jane will write a report. John will do this research. John and Jane still have to go out and do the research, but the computer is summarizing and articulating what's going to happen, right? That's what's happening today. By the way, if you go on a Zoom call, know that the person can turn on a recording, you know that, but they can also do this AI companion thing. And we saw the famous case of somebody who was using this. The person came in for the interview, they left, and for hours these people were talking about other candidates, talking about company secrets, and then they mailed a transcript to the participants in the Zoom call. So that kind of stuff can happen. Also, someone could invite you to a Zoom call that they're hosting, they leave, and if you talk about that person, it all shows up and it all recorded. So we have to be extra aware. Like, you know, now when you go into any space, you should be looking around. Are there cameras? What is happening? You have to have that same awareness inside these situations. So the difference between generative and interactive is, remember when I said that on a Zoom call, it can tell you who has to do the research. In the future, you don't even have to go to the meeting. My AI and Pam's AI, our bots will go into the meetings, they'll meet, they'll decide what to do, they'll write the reports. So some of you hear that and say, that is fantastic. And some people are like, oh my God, that is horrible. And the same reactions can happen with the same piece of technology. And that's where we're going now. There's a Microsoft product called Copilot that is available to anyone, but they also sell it to companies. And I have a friend who is a very advanced user of it. And every morning when he gets up, he gets the 5 most important emails, according to Microsoft, are at the top with suggested answers. He still has to say yes, 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 yes. But in the future, the emails will come in and they'll be answered. So how much trust do you have to put into these systems to do that, right? Again, some of you are shocked and others are like, that's so wonderful. And that's the problem with this stuff and why we have to be paying attention. So Cosmo magazine did its first ever AI issue, and it made the world's first AI magazine cover. And if you can't probably see from where you're sitting, but can someone in the front see what's under her boots, at the bottom of her boot? It said it took only 20 seconds to make this image. And as Pam knows, if you work at a magazine, one of the best things is arguing about the cover and different designs and fighting over that. And in 20 seconds, this was built. Now, obviously, this doesn't mean we don't need designers. You need designers who understand this technology. But this is what they were able to do, right? And an example of all the things that are happening. Rolling Stone had a really good AI issue about the future of music. And what they did was they had an AI review a new record, and then they reviewed the AI reviewing the record. So that was kind of cool. One of the things that the Grammys have said is no AI, any music that uses AI will not be eligible for the Grammys. And I don't think that's practical because, as you know, we've had electronic music around for decades. There's things like auto-tune and other things. So they're going to have to pull that back. And so we're going to see that in many ways. I want to spend a few minutes talking about prompts, which are the ways in which you interact with the AI, right? Prompting, you've heard this term. That's what when you do the equivalent of doing a Google search. And this quote from one of my students, I think really captures that AI, the power of AI isn't that it gives you answers, is that it forces you to ask better questions. And you're seeing already in job listings, it says advanced prompt writing is a skill that they're looking for. And people are putting it in their own resume saying advanced prompt writing. Another term for this is prompt engineering. You've heard that term as well. And there's a lot of things you can do with that. So here's some guidelines to writing better prompts. You know this from Google, right? That you can ask a simple Google question, it's most likely to be what you're looking for. But if you want to really dig down, you have to know some advanced Google parameters and things like that. So be clear and specific, use relevant keywords. And here are some ways in which you can start or trigger the prompts, right? Words like list, generate, produce, compile, describe. And these tools, as they get better, are always telling you to first describe how you want it to think. Say, think like the owner of a florist business in Port Washington that has 3 employees. Now make a marketing plan, right? Instead of just saying marketing plan in Google, when you describe things like this, then it generates a better marketing plan. Does that make sense? So it's really the input that makes that difference. But one of the things we're not doing enough of is asking it how it knows. Why do you think that? What evidence do you have for that? Any chance you're making a mistake, right? Like this, that's what you're asking for. If you've ever done math with a 10-year-old, they love showing you the answer. But what do you often say to them? How did you get it? Show me the steps. Show me the work, right? So similarly, ask it, how do you know? Like I'm sure with DeepSeek, if I'd gone and said, how do you know? Are you sure you haven't made a mistake about my death? Then it would find that I'm still sort of alive. So you can do that. So something I want you to think about as you're using these tools, ask how it knows. And there are all kinds of things now that are doing AI and lots of prompting tools. But there's also, it's so overhyped. Look at this. A vodka has launched an AI platform for throwing better parties. But if you need an AI generating tool for throwing a party, you don't know how to party, is what I would say. There's the first defamation lawsuit that's happening. This is where I was talking about George R.R. Martin and others are suing ChatGPT, not for machines to harvest. Data revolts are happening now. We're speaking out against AI. And the law profession, I'm sure we have lawyers in the house. So much has changed in the law profession. And one thing I'll just call out on the lower right, a tool that was available only to prosecutors is now available to defendants as well. It's an AI tool that uses facial recognition and things like that. So this is all changing dramatically. And you'll find that a lot of people will claim that my tools are not biased. I'm really good at, on a mission to create a better informed society is what this says. But they also say that Bloomberg is left of center. And if you read Bloomberg, you know that it's not left of center. And it says OANN is center. The OANN makes Newsmax look like public NPR. And that's what they've done here. So you can see that there's so much turmoil and stuff going on here that even tools that tell you we're telling the truth are themselves biased and problematic. Let me see if I can play this. I don't have the video now, but this is an example of how quickly things are changing. And this is a video of the UN Secretary General speaking in perfect Hindi when he doesn't speak any Hindi at all. Lip syncing is all perfect. And so the question was, and I work with a lot of UN agencies saying, well, great, this is great, let's get this out there. But a couple of major reasons we're not using it. The first is, it's one thing to double check or fact check a 30-second clip. It's another for a 3-hour UN talk to get it all correct. And if the UN makes a mistake, you could have a war and other issues. Second is, what is the ethics of this dubbed videos? You've seen this, right? People speaking in other languages. He gets to India. The first time a Hindi-speaking reporter asks him a question and realizes he doesn't speak Hindi, his credibility is shot, right? They're not going to take him seriously. But that's the world we're living in now, where all of this stuff is happening. And here's another example of change that's coming.
Going to take you around the world to show you what could be the next big thing in television and online news. Take a look. This is Lisa, an anchor for Odisha TV News, located in eastern India.
Here are the top headlines at this hour. Red warning issued for 4 districts of Odisha.
What makes Lisa different is she's not human. She's generated by artificial intelligence. AI anchors haven't been perfected yet and don't sound completely natural, but the technology is still new and will doubtless be improved. And this isn't just happening in India. Business Insider reports AI anchors are being used in many countries, including China, Taiwan, Indonesia, Malaysia, and Kuwait.
He's basically reporting on the end of his career, right? His replacements. He's talking about that right there, as you can see that as well. The other thing that's happening now is with video. Many of these tools now allow you to type in some text and it generates a full video that looks very real. So I'm going to show you an example of that. There are many tools now that do this, but there's a tool called Sora, and basically you type in a very detailed, description, and it'll generate that. So here, let me just take you. Let me just take you back to this. So there's a where is it? Right here. Okay. So this is the prompt that you write. You write this prompt here. A cat waking up to its sleeping owner demanding breakfast. The owner tries to ignore the cat, but the cat tries new tactics, et cetera, et cetera. So you write that out in detail, and look what happens. Everything here is fake. From the cat to the owner to the pillows to the sheets, everything is fake. And you're seeing that. If you look very carefully, the cat has like an extra paw up there. Do you see that right at the very top? So that's a kind of hallucination. But Tyler Perry, the filmmaker, saw just these demos, and he canceled an $800 million project in Atlanta to build new sets and new studios. He said, I won't need that because these things are going to be able to do it. But it's not just the loss of a studio, right? This is the jobs, people who move to Atlanta to get those jobs. It's also the economy of that place and the dry cleaners and everybody else that's affected. And that's what you're seeing as these tools get smarter and better. How do we think about what we want to do with it? Now ChatGPT can respond with spoken words. You might have seen, you can ask questions and it just speaks back to you, sort of like you can with Alexa or any of those tools. And here you are seeing 6 good principles to think about with AI: impartiality, reliability, accountability, etc. And you'll think, wow, this must have been done by Microsoft. It was, but in conjunction with the Vatican. And look at the date, February 28, 2020. And something called Rome Call, which brings together people of different faiths to talk about these issues. It's fascinating. The Vatican actually has been ahead of a lot of institutions about technology for a long time. They did this interesting thing a few years ago where they said, if you follow us on Twitter, we'll get you off purgatory. So some of you know your Catholicism, you know there's heaven, hell, and there's purgatory. What is it, like 1,000 years in limbo, right? Something like that. And I'm Hindu, so I'm not Catholic, but I'm not taking a chance on this reincarnation stuff. If it doesn't work, I follow the Vatican in 6 different languages. And I encourage all of you to do the same. In case you get stuck in limbo, you're like, oh my God. I remember he came to the Port Washington Library, this guy, and told me to how to get out of it, and it didn't work, and I didn't do it. By the way, just before I came on, the Pope, they released the first pictures of the Pope outside of the hospital. And we were talking earlier, if you watch Conclave, it was like in the news when the Pope was ill, and it was all coming together. Very too realistic for some of us. Speaking of realistic, here is what some of the biggest names in AI came together and did something amazing, where they said that our product is going to kill you. Think about smoking and tobacco. Think about fossil fuels, right? They fought and fought. Some of you are old enough to remember in the 1950s, women were told they should smoke, right? It was a healthy habit. It was a good thing to do. And so they fought it. But these guys, 6 months after OpenAI, they said, we're going to look at the top sentence. It should be alongside pandemics and nuclear war. And you would think, oh, good, this is an 800-page report on how to stop this. This was the entire report. That sentence was the report saying, okay, good luck. And so I give them credit for admitting that they could kill us, but no credit for not doing anything about it. And here's another part of this that you might know, that there's a lot of money needed for renewable energy to be able to pay to kind of cool the data centers that do AI especially. It's much more than what do Google searches, for example. Because the computing power, so you need more cooling towers, you need more water to cool it. So it's like learning that almonds are really bad for you. Have you heard this? Like there's a lot of almonds use a lot of water, and something that no one ever told you. And then you learn that that's happening. So I'm just going to start wrapping up here so we can get to some questions. But I want to show you some tools that, you know, we talked about video. Just want to talk about some photos and images as well. This is our beagle. And I said, draw me a painting of a beagle eating a dosa. A dosa is a kind of South Indian crepe, and it did a really good job. Here I said, an impressionist oil painting of someone teaching an AI workshop. And here's a cyberpunk illustration of the same thing. And then this is the art generator cheat sheet, which if you have anyone who's doing any art in your world, this is what you need. You need an adjective, a noun, a verb, and then what the style is. So you could say a yellow unicorn wearing sunglasses in the style of Frida Kahlo, or whatever you want, Monet, Manet, whatever. That's what you need. So that's how you talk to these AI tools, and there's so many of them now, as you know. I'll just give you a second if those of you who are still trying to take a picture of this, so you have it. And again, we can circulate the link of the presentation, so they'll have it. But those of you who want to just grab it. Here's one of the problems with AI. This is an AI-generated image, and this is an AI-generated image. Both of motorcycles in East Africa with the UN Immigration Organization. They do a lot of work there. And one of them has errors in it, right? So let's see if you can discover, you can tell me which one has errors in it. You all see the errors, right? The problem here. So it turns out that both have errors in it. This one, you just need to be a really good motorcycle expert to be able to tell that the handlebars, the center of gravity is wrong, that this is fake. And this one, you don't need anything. The problem is that if all mistakes were like this, we would catch them. But the problem is that they're often like this, or like that cat. And so this is where, when people say, Sree, you're so negative about AI, I say, yes, but this is also where we have a role to play. Your expertise matters, because everything that you've said and done and learned in your life, now AI is going to make it more important that you bring that to the table. And that's why a motorcycle expert can tell about this, whereas I can only tell about this. And that's something to think about as well. And one of the things that you've been told is, don't always believe your eyes. Believe your ears when you see things. And here is Tom Cruise.
What's up, TikTok? You guys cool if I play some sports? I love it. More for the audio experience. As much as the momentum. Hey, listen up, sports and TikTok fans. If you like what you're seeing, just wait till what's coming next.
You know where that's going. That's not Tom Cruise, right? You saw him, you heard him, that's Tom Cruise, but it's not. And that's the world we're in, and it's problematic. But it's not just video, it's also audio. And there's a tool called 11 Labs, you can see that up on the upper right. They say, give us 1 minute of anyone's audio, we can clone that voice and make them say anything. So I went in and took one of my favorite songs by Run DMC, and let's see if we can make this work.
I am Sree Sreenivasan, and I'm here to say my Adidas walked through concert doors and roam all over Coliseum floors. I stepped on stage at Live Aid, all the people gave and the poor got paid.
That song was butchered badly, but that's my voice. And I only gave it 15 seconds instead of the 1 minute they asked for, and they still did that. With no tuning or anything, they got that right. And you've seen and heard cases of people getting calls from their daughters, their sons, their fathers, mothers, grandmothers saying, I need $5,000, I need money. So you've heard this on the news. What do they tell you to have? A family safe word, right? A family catchphrase, something, password that if someone calls and says, Dad, I need money, Mom, I need money, you say, what's the catchphrase? What's our phrase? And so please have that. Please do that for your family. A congressman sent thousands of dollars because he thought his daughter was in trouble and she wasn't. So that's happening right now, because you will hear somebody's loved one's voice. It sounds exactly like they're in trouble. And what are you going to do, right? You will want to help. And that's what they're counting on with all of these things as well. And this is happening in so many different ways as well. So what I'm going to do now is show you a few more things, and then we're going to quickly go to questions. Anyone here using Spotify? So you may have seen they have a DJ, an AI DJ on there. And what it does is it plays music according to this artificial DJ, and they'll say that here's some song, it's raining today, and when it rains, you usually listen to this song. So it knows your patterns, and it'll do things like that. There are a lot of tools now. If you use Gmail, there's a lot of AI now built into that. If you use Google Slides, any of these tools, you're seeing it. This is the AI companion I was talking about. So if you're ever inside Zoom, look for this image right here, the little star or diamond. I don't know what you call that, but if that's on, that means everything is being transcribed, what you're talking about. So that's, you'll see that. Yeah, it says AI companion at the bottom, right? It'll be kind of blinking if it does. So always look for it if you're on Zoom. People love this tool. It's called the Angry Email Translator. You type in an angry email and it makes it into a very soft, nice email. And I showed this and somebody said, I love this, but I want the opposite also, where you write a nice note and it sends you an angry. There's a famous video, or actually Obama did this at the last White House Correspondents' Dinner, where he was famous for being kind of low, steady, and he had this actor behind him who started yelling with four-letter words behind him, translating. It was called the Angry Obama Translator. So this is somewhat similar, I guess. And you're seeing LinkedIn now has a lot of AI tools, resume tools. And then this is kind of interesting. Here are the top 100 startups in AI. And I know from where you are, you probably can't read them. But this is in 2023. And some of these companies are already worth billions of dollars, companies that didn't exist in 2023. This is 2024. The 2025 list is coming out soon. And they're covering not just the topics we talked about, but cybersecurity, music, waste management, kind of every part of American life or our lives are now manufacturing, film, all have AI startups that are doing important work in there. This is also an important tool to know about if you have kids or friends or children or neighbors in college. So I took my newsletter, which is 100% human written, and I put it into this, and it said I'm 97% human generated. And you're like, wait a minute, what if the professor's cutoff is 98%? And we're going to have lawsuits and problems in this country where we don't know. So this is a conversation you need to have with anybody, not just in college, K through 12. We're seeing professors just presuming that your kids are just using ChatGPT for homework. And what does that mean, and where do we go from there? One of the things we've also seen is that there's a built-in bias in all of these tools. And so this is a tool that will improve your headshot. So the woman on the left put in her headshot. Look what it did. It changed her skin color, hair color, eyes, and everything else. Why? Because human beings create these algorithms, right? It's not machines, it's humans. And the human beings told the machine that the person on the right is the ideal in looks. So you've seen that. This is a tool that I love showing people. It's called thispersondoesnotexist.com. So you go in here and they generate fake people. And it's a good way to see, can you tell if someone's fake or not? And so a couple of ways to think about this. The kid right below the wording, you can see these blob face next to him. Do you see the blob face or the blob hand? That's one way to see it. Look on the lower left, person with extra fingers. You see this kid here, too many teeth. The women have mismatched earrings. Doesn't mean women never wear mismatched earrings, but unlikely to a headshot. But what is common about each of these things is the computer is now going to learn to look for those and just eliminate them, right? So that, why should they? They'll know, don't generate six-fingered people, and that'll just go away. So let's pause here, and I have a couple of takeaway slides that I'll show you at the end, but let's take some questions, and Jeff is going to be kind enough to move around. You pick who you want to give the mic to, Jeff.
Yes,
go ahead.
Absolutely. I'm just going to remind those who are on Zoom, you can type any questions that you have into the chat, and we can read some of those out as well.
Yeah, are there any questions while you're going around? Any questions from our Zoom friends? Okay, why don't we go to,
We'll take one. I think I saw a hand right here.
I hope this doesn't sound so ignorant, but is AI something that you get because you can buy a gadget like a computer? Is it a physical thing? Is it a computer program? What exactly is it? If I wanted to use it, how do I go about getting AI?
Great question, and thank you for that. You definitely need a phone or a computer, and Google has a product called Gemini. So if you just type in Gemini, Google, it'll come up, and it'll look like a search box. And in that search box, you can say, generate something for me, or tell me whatever your sub area of interest is. You can ask it to do that. So think of it as a super advanced search engine, and that's one way to understand how that works. So it's, but as I was saying, it's also in your doctor's colonoscopy system. So it's everywhere around us. But Gemini is the Google product. It's free. ChatGPT is another product. There's also one, Elon Musk has one called Grok, G-R-O-K. There's one called Perplexity. So there are all these different tools, and they all are on the freemium model where you get some limited amount free, and then you pay about $20 a month if you want the advanced one. I tell people you don't need it unless you're really trying to investigate, understand, use. You don't need to spend the $20 a month, but definitely play around and see if it interests you, because for some people it doesn't matter, they're not going to use it. But for other people it really matters. And you'll see that the system is being used by all kinds of other systems that you're using. So even if you don't seek out AI, you're being exposed to it, is what's happening. So thank you.
Another question back
Yeah.
here.
Hi, Sree. Thank you. There's been a lot of conflicting reports, and I wondered if you can clarify what your position is. There was some news, I think 2 or 3 months ago, about the difficulty for OpenAI to launch GPT 5, or maybe it was 4 at the time. These things move so quickly, because they were literally running out of data. And so there's a lot of assumption on what the next step will be or how far we will be able to go, but those are still assumptions and projections. Do you have any idea about how much more we can actually expect versus what we'd like to expect based on the sort of emergence property that comes from some unlimited amount of data?
Thank you. Great question. And I would say, part of this also depends on what you want this to do. Some people are hearing all this and want it to stop 2 years ago. And some people want it to keep going. And one of the reasons why there are some theoretical and physical limits to what they can do is because of the data question you just raised, especially because so many people are closing off the data that they can access. And that's why another trend that you may have heard of are what are called agentic work, where agents are being created that go out and talk to the world on your behalf. And so that's something that you're seeing as well. But from everything I've read, and I have no insider knowledge, that they are back on track is what they've said. But remember, this is all business, and part of what you do is you kind of puff out your chest, and there's this great term that I'm sure Pam remembers from her software days, vaporware, where you announce things because the stock market is following, right? And so lots of investments being made. So you say it will do all this stuff even if it can't do it yet, and that's sort of where we are. We'll do quick questions, quick answers.
Yep, another question right here.
Yep, go ahead.
You talk about the ethics and you talk about Congress. If you were sitting in front of Congress today and they said, given their average age is like 70, you said, what can we do to get ahead of this? What would you say?
Well, I would say that you need like a emergency task force. You remember the 9/11 Commission? Like that level of bringing together various government agencies, the private sector, public sector. What can we do at this point? Where are the jobs? Where are the careers? What's going to happen? I mean, it's that much of an emergency, but we're not thinking about that. No one's doing it. And I know you have experience in working on, and he worked as a CIO for the city of New York, so you know exactly that they're not ready, especially in Congress. I think at the city level, there are some very smart folks working on these things. But longer term, one of the co-founders of Facebook, Chris Hughes, who's not as famous, obviously, as Mark Zuckerberg, he is a big proponent of what he calls universal basic income. Are you folks familiar with this, where you would pay people a certain amount of money because there are just not going to be enough jobs for everybody? What are they going to do? So you give them, and there's an experiment in Oakland, I believe. They took 2,000 families. I have to go back and read up on it and see if that a solution. I don't know. It's going to be very complicated in this political environment to do any of that.
We're going to go upstairs. I think we have a question
upstairs.
on Zoom.
Hi, Zoom.
Hi. How commonly is AI psychosis, e.g. giving wildly incorrect answers that are doubled down when called on it, still happening?
Yeah, thank you. Great question. So instead of calling it hallucination, how about AI psychosis? I think that there's much more awareness of it, and it's been so embarrassing for these companies that they are they're good at when you ask, or they're better, ask it to show the steps, show the work. They've been better about it, but it's still a problem that happens every day. And we've seen journalists, students, and others make mistakes publicly that they wouldn't have if they had just done the original research, if they'd gone, one of the things we've lost, as you know, is this art of doing research and going to the original sources as much as possible. So thank you for that question.
Yeah, and I think there's one more up there. We'll stick with that.
Okay.
Does Wikipedia get its info from AI?
As of now, no. Wikipedia is still done by human beings, for better or worse. And that's one of the things that's being targeted by Musk and company, are saying that Wikipedia is problematic. But Wikipedia, one of the things that's always been important about Wikipedia is that it gives you the original sources. Do you ever notice the references at the bottom? I remember when there was a professor at Middlebury College who said he will not allow his students to use Wikipedia. And so journalists interviewed me, and I said that they shouldn't use Wikipedia for original information. They should go to those. They shouldn't cite Wikipedia. They should cite the references in there. What's going to happen is there's going to be this flood of misinformation, disinformation. It's already there. That will then get cited by Wikipedia, and that's going to be the problem. So that's where. So as of today, you can still trust Wikipedia for the most part, but go into those original references. There's still lots of issues with Wikipedia, but a study showed that they did much better during the 2016 elections, for example, than all the other platforms, even though that's the one that anybody can edit. But they have some things that they could do in there.
Yeah, another question here.
Sree, I think there's something like 400 million people who've used ChatGPT. Let me ask you this. Every time I use it, aren't I teaching it more about myself?
Yes.
And aren't I teaching it more how to make me dispensable? So in what way, even though we need to learn how to use these, in what way are we should we continue to use them if we are teaching it?
Yeah, it's a great question. So you worry about the teaching it. You also the amount of water being used, right? There are all kinds of issues. Some of you know that we also have these issues with Google and other products as well. My wife uses something called DuckDuckGo. Is anyone familiar with this? Several people here. She refuses to use Google as a search engine. She uses DuckDuckGo as a search engine, and it's just how she's wired, how she uses it. And so what we need are AI tools that are, remember very early on I mentioned the sandbox where it's all kind of safe rather than going into the cloud. But you know the old expression is that if you're not paying for all this, you're the product. And this is a sense of where we are paying sometimes $20 a month and it's still doing. One other issue, I love how much the Port Washington Library is sharing resources, digital tools for students. You have hotspots you can rent out. It's all amazing. But this is going to become a problem as well, that there are going to be kids who can afford $2, $3, $20 a month subscriptions to these different tools, and their work will be considered or look better than it will the others who can't afford it. So what will happen is a question. So we have, I think, time for a couple more questions.
Yeah,
so let's.
Thank you. Most humans are deterred from deceiving others by the danger of persecution. Is there anything similar for all of these AI tools that they will restrain their deliberately falsifying information and trying to deceive people? As a consequence, I see you're nodding.
No, I'm not. First of all, thank you for that question. Yeah, no, thank you for asking. What are the consequences?
Why?
Sorry, go ahead.
Whom is he going to sue?
Yeah, no, who can you sue? No, like who can you sue? Elon Musk lies every day on the biggest platform in the world, or one of the biggest platforms. There's no consequence.
As a consequence, therefore, can I trust anything other than the physical interaction with a human being? Everything that comes from the computer or from an image or something is just as likely to be not only false, but deceitful as it is to be true, and there is no way to tell.
Yeah, that's sadly, how many people think that what he's saying is right, that it's things that you're going to encounter are mostly going to be false, right? Many of you are agreeing with that. But it's hard to know, and so that's why we have to be vigilant, right? But that part is not new. Do you remember the early days of the internet? Those of you had email, that you'd get an email saying, my cousin went to New York, had a good time, and woke up in a tub of ice. Does anybody remember this? And a note that said, your kidney has been stolen. And so it was like, don't go to New York. This is going to happen to you. And everyone had a cousin's friend who this happened to. Of course, it was not true. But that's what, anytime you're able to distribute information, there's been problems. Some of you remember postcards and the postcard chain letters? Do you remember that? Where send this to 10 people or you'll break the chain and then you'll have bad luck for 100 years. You remember that? So anytime anything can be disseminated, you're going to have people disseminate bad things. Sometimes on purpose. Sometimes great deliberation, deliberately. And others are going to do it inadvertently. Like if you're on WhatsApp groups, if you're on a WhatsApp group, family WhatsApp group, it's usually filled with problems. I saw my own mother kind of poisoned by WhatsApp misinformation about COVID and all this stuff. And so I tell people, become the person who fact checks inside WhatsApp groups, but then that is not a way to be popular in your own family. And so we have to step up. We have to call it out when things are going wrong. I know we're going to...
Yeah, that's okay. I just want to follow up on that. So
sure.
as somebody from the journalism field, where are we at in terms of the integrity of journalism? And I know you've given us a number of tools here in terms of how we can explore, some of what AI is able to do. What are some of the tools, as someone from the field of journalism, that all of us can take with us in terms of figuring out, is this accurate journalism? Is this inaccurate news?
I think one of the things to do is to go with people and brands and names you trust. And that doesn't mean only reading the New York Times. It means reading publications in your local community, Newsday, of course, all of these publications where they're talking about where information is important and accurate as much as possible. Like even journalism, as some of you may know this term, they call it the first draft of history, meaning it's the best we can do at this moment. But we don't know, all sides to everything. There are so many cases. But remember that there's been huge consequences of disinformation, misinformation that have affected us for decades, long before the internet. Many of you know this story. There was a moment when Harvard Medical School, the School of Public Health, was going to name a villain in the food of America. And it was going to be either sugars or fats, right? And you know the story that they bribed and paid scientists at Harvard to name fats, and the sugar lobby did that. And everything that has happened in American health can be traced to that moment. And that was Harvard, right? So there are always going to be bad actors, liars, cheats in our lives. What's changed is where they're coming from now and at the height of, and how we're exposed to it. And that's why we need to fight back and do this. So do we have time for one more question?
Yeah, I think they said there's one more there.
Okay, and then I see a question here, and then we can wrap up. We'll take both questions together. Go ahead, please.
Can you please provide, in your estimation, the odds that AI will start operating beyond human understanding or operating in ways counterproductive to human existence within the next 10 years? And how will they start covering their tracks?
By the way, great radio voice up there. Do you hear that? Thank you.
That was AI generated.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I'll come to that. Let's take the other question also, and then we'll do that. We'll do them together if you can.
Do you find young people interested in all of this?
Yeah, thank you. Great question. So to both questions, first about young people, what I find is that young people often will presume they know all this stuff, and that trips them up. I mean, I often say that people like me who are not, the term digital native versus digital immigrant. Have you heard that term? So a lot of people in this room are digital immigrants. And digital immigrants are more likely to open a manual and read and try to understand. My kids just presume they know because they were born into it. They don't even know manuals exist, right? You buy an iPhone, no manual, right? So they just presume they know. So in terms of whether they're asking enough questions, what they don't realize is how much they just think all tech is good. But we are seeing there is a subset now of people who are making their social media private, who are not sharing as much as we thought. That's happening with Generation Alpha. You may know that we've gone past Gen Z to Gen Alpha, and a lot of them have private social media, but that doesn't mean they care enough about this or understand enough about this and what's happening with colleges. One simple thing, you're going to see college admissions folks, just the way that social media changed college admissions because people would start reading their Instagrams, admissions officers and things. You'll see that essays, you write a good essay today, how do people know it's yours? Right? You're going to almost have to you have to prove that you didn't use any of these tools. That's going to be the default. Everyone's going to presume that that great turn of phrase came from AI, even if you wrote it just by yourself. So you're going to see more exams that are verbal or in class with no computer. So going back 30 years in some way, I'd say for young people. The bigger, deeper question that was asked about what happens in the future, are we going to have Terminator-like situations? And we obviously hope not. What we are seeing that these tools are able to do things beyond what we predicted 5 years ago. That's why generative AI was so important, that the scale, scope, and speed is just dramatically different from anything we had known and expected, and that's what we're experiencing right now. So in the next slide, I will answer that question a little further, and this is my last slide here, so you can grab this. It's called My Takeaways on AI, and it says here that no tech can live up to such hype. I think that's a good thing to know. The other is that every industry will be affected, and lots of money will be made and lost. Most careers will be upended in unexpected ways. And pay close attention, learn new skills. All of you coming out here on a Sunday shows that you care about this. You want to learn more. And I'm sure there'll be other opportunities here at the library to learn these things. The Daniel Pink quote, which I love. And remember, they're not hallucinations. They're errors, mistakes, big effing deals. Be vigilant about the dangers. AI companies will not fix the problems. Remember the social media problems? Mark Zuckerberg, on his desk, had a research report from Instagram's internal team saying this is doing great damage to girls and boys and is problematic. Shall we stop? He said no. Right? So you think about, like, remember I used the word bad actors in this. You think, it's somebody in a basement, a troll doing something. This was one of the most important, most successful, richest people in the world, knowing he's poisoning his own customers and saying yes. He could have said no, and he said yes, right? So that's part of why you see the problem in Silicon Valley is nobody says no to these people, right? And that's what you're seeing. And then I say here, and answering that question from Zoom, I say that Team Human will prevail. But one of the questions is, which kind of human will prevail? Will it be more like the social media companies? Will we get more people with concentrated wealth, power, where they're not sympathetic, empathetic in the world? Or will we get different kind of people? And that's why we all need to be involved in paying attention. And I want to say that my slide earlier said that the greatest resource is human attention, and you gave me 90 minutes of your attention, and that's an incredible gift. And so here are the slides, and thank you very much, everybody.